evening and welcome. You're listening live to Heart-to-Heart, a program which aims to help you understand and to become your loving self. This is KMET 1490 AM ABC News Radio Live. And then let's see, what else is there? I'm Dr. Mitra Rashidian, licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified sexologist in full-time private practice. And we're here this morning along with my very best friend, colleague, business partner for the past 16 years, Dr. Robert Jaffe. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, yes, I'm Dr. Robert Jaffe.
And you're here.
And I'm here. I say I'm always here.
Yes,
right?
You are.
Because wherever we are, we're always here.
Right.
So I'm also a licensed marriage and family therapist, certified hypnotherapist as well. And today's program is going to be on addictions and trauma, and also codependency, which we are calling here our most prevalent addiction in our society. It's most prevalent, and it is the most unnamed, and people are the most unaware of it. They don't think of it as an addiction. It's not ubiquitous, but it's plentiful. And so when I say it's not ubiquitous, not everybody, of course, suffers with the codependency, but a lot of people do. And the people who do are unaware that they have this going on for them. And you can't work on something if you don't know that there's something to be worked on. So the biggest problem in addictions is denial. And it's probably the biggest problem in life, is that we deny things because we don't want them to be true. And we also deny things because of other reasons. Sometimes we deny things because our parents gave us messages, and the reality of our life is different than the messages that they gave us. And we want to keep our parents on a pedestal, so we deny the reality. And unfortunately, that happens a lot in society, and I believe is also happening right now with our government, that a lot of people are in denial of what's going on. They don't want to believe it. And so when someone is in denial, then there's no way to help them, because if I say, it's raining outside, and you look up and you go, no, the sky is blue and it's clear, there's such a divergence of reality that how are you going to tell the person, how are you going to convince the person that when you walk out, you're going to get wet? And unfortunately, that's going on a lot in our society. Things are happening, and people don't want to believe that they're happening, and can't imagine that anybody can be doing the things that are good, that are happening, because it's so horrible that the people. And this is what happened, of course, a lot in the past. It happened in Nazi Germany. Mm-hmm. For the Jews who ended up in the concentration camps, of which 6 million were exterminated, couldn't believe that people could actually do that to other people. Mm-hmm. And by the time they came out of denial, it was too late.
Right.
Yeah. So that happens in society, and it also happens within families.
So I guess, what I'm getting from listening to you, which is so true, by the way, I guess as human beings, once we get to a point of profound discomfort and fear of facing the truth, it makes it easier for us not to look at the reality and go into denial and walk away, or believing that we are walking away.
Yes, believing that we're walking away, believing that we don't have to face it.
Face it.
Yes.
Yeah. And this morning I was listening to the news briefly, and the numbers of death and the number of increase is just happening again, and we are now looking at least 230 deaths coming up by end of
230,000.
30,000, maybe by end of this month.
Wow.
And so many states they show increase, and it's just so fearful. And this morning when I was coming up in the in the elevator, there was this lady who was just to her iPhone with no mask. And she was wondering how come I wasn't getting into the elevator with her.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
And she looked at me as though I'm so stupid.
Oh, that yeah.
You know.
Yes, yeah, right. As though everybody, who's dying, they're making up the numbers.
They're making up the numbers.
Right. Yeah. And
I don't know. At least in my history, my life history, I don't know of any place that has had. I mean, this is nature taking us away because we're so oblivious about it.
What do you mean, nature taking us away?
I mean, this virus, how it happened.
Yes.
Right, and we don't have any control over it. Right, but we can at least take care of ourselves.
Right.
But we're not doing it, and look at how people are dying one after another. And this is nothing but denial of the reality.
Yes.
The danger of this reality. In my own family, back home, I learned that 4 people died one after another because of the corona.
4 people in your family.
In my other side of family.
Yeah.
And then and it was just so painful to hear that. I mean, yes, I haven't seen these people in the longest time, but it's still these are people that I know. Right. So imagine with the numbers that's going up the way they are going up, eventually all of us are going to know at least somebody who died in corona.
Yeah. Right. But this problem of denial actually makes the corona deaths pretty small in comparison to what it costs us as a society. All of the addictions, of which there are many, and the greatest one, again, we're saying the greatest one is codependency, which we've been talking about for quite a while on this program, are all based in denial. And we see this so often when clients come in for therapy or for marital counseling, that people don't understand that things that have happened to them in their past are still affecting them. And that kind of excuse me, that kind of denial keeps people from being able to do anything about it, because what we hear sometimes is, oh, well, yes, that I had that experience, but I'm over it now. And oftentimes those experiences come from childhood.
Right.
And childhood is the place where we are most vulnerable, and we're most vulnerable to people treating us well or not treating us well. And we learn a lot about ourselves and a lot about life from the way that we're treated, especially in childhood, because we soak it all in. And we grow up having these beliefs, having these old experiences that affected us, and then we create what we call enactments, or acting out of those things. So, for example, if your mother was very critical, you end up, marrying somebody, and that person becomes very critical in your life. And you think, oh, that's a coincidence, not recognizing that part of you that is used to being criticized subconsciously wanted somebody to fill that role. And so you selected somebody like that. But people don't understand that And so they say, okay, well, if my mother was critical, my first wife was critical, my second wife was critical, my girlfriend is critical, I guess all women are critical.
And they, and here's the thing, and they become so committed to their thought process. They become so committed
To their belief.
to their beliefs that, and they really, if you try to shake it up and bring them out of that belief, they just leave therapy.
Yes. Yeah. Right. And they used to call that in olden times killing the messenger. Right. And so and that of course was from the reality. Right, when we used to, in feudal England, where there were different kingdoms and different kings, and one king would send a message to another king, and the second king wouldn't like the message. The message may have been, you're encroaching on my property and on my lands, please get off my land, or we're going to have to go to war. And the king who's receiving it says, oh, that's baloney, and he would chop off the head of the guy who brought the message. Yes. And we do that. So why do we do that? We do that because the denial that we have and the commitment to the belief is so powerful that that anyone who dares to say anything different, we want to castigate, we want to kill.
Right.
Yeah. Even things in science where when we finally discovered, we thought, of course, that the Earth was the center of the universe and that the sun went around the Earth. And when we finally discovered that the Earth went around the sun, that was a heresy to talk about.
Right.
And people, were killed over that belief. That they, how can you say such a thing? Because the Earth is the center, and we are in the image of God, and everything revolves around us, and it's just so obvious. And you're saying something different. You're saying we're not that important because we're revolving around the sun like the other planets. No, that can't be true. And so what you're saying, you need to be killed for. Yeah. So how does this relate to addictions, and how does this relate to codependency? Addiction has to do with denial, and codependency has to do with denial. And what is it that we're denying? We're denying pain.
Right.
Yes. And so most addictions have to do with emotional pain. They can also have to do with physical pain, right? If you're in pain and you're taking a pain pill, you can become addicted to the pain pill because you are trying to get rid of your physical pain. But in most cases, addictions are related to emotional pain. And we're going to talk more about that after our break. What is emotional pain, and what causes the addictions? And then why is codependency so ubiquitous? I'm saying ubiquitous. It's so prevalent. I'm not going to say ubiquitous. Not everybody.
Yeah.
But it's so prevalent within our society.
Exactly. So more of this. Then this is very interesting, amazing topic that we all must know about it after commercial break.
We'll see you soon.
Welcome back from our commercial break. This is Heart-to-Heart program at KMET 1490 AM, ABC News Radio. Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here live. Our phone number here is 951-922-3532. So please call us, ask us questions, share your opinion, and share this program to those that you believe they can benefit from. And we thank you for giving us your morning hours and share it with us. Appreciate that. So we're talking about the most important topic of codependency as prevalent addiction.
Yes, codependency is our most prevalent addiction. There's, of course, there's different levels of everything, right?
Right.
There's including addictions. I mean, there are people who can be what we call functional addicts. what is a functional addict? A functional addict is an addict who can function in society and still continue um, to work. Let's say they can still show up at the job. They can still they're a good provider. Uh, they can function in terms of the things that need to be done in order for survival to continue. But somebody who actually is an addict, whether they are a functional addict or not a functional addict, are not able to be emotionally connected with other people. There's a distortion because whatever you're addicted to interferes with your ability to be in your loving, authentic, true self, which is that part of your personality that is able to understand and relate and empathize with other people. And addictions take you out of that side of your brain. So when you're struggling with an addiction, you're unable to really be kind and loving a lot of the time because you're in the fix-it part of your brain. It's a problem, let's fix it, rather than let's understand how it feels to be in that problem. So the person who's the functional alcoholic, let's say if it's the husband, the wife will be complaining, that when you come home you're distracted, or you don't play with the kids, or you don't bring, the old saying, you don't bring me flowers anymore, because his addiction prohibits him from being in that feeling part of the brain. So what he will do then is he will come home and he will eat dinner, and then he will maybe watch a little television, and then if he has time, he will utilize his addiction. His addiction can be, of course, to drugs and alcohol, but he can also be a sex addict. So that can mean that he wants sex all the time with his wife, or it can mean that he wants to masturbate a lot, or he can be into pornography, and it's just in search of the high that you get from your sexuality. It's not in search of the connection, the emotional closeness, the tenderness. So the wife eventually will start to feel used because she is being used, because the man isn't really making love. He's having sex as a goal to alleviate the, quote, stress in his life. But the stress is actually the emotional pain that he's in. We have a subconscious mind which tracks every event in our life. And it's not just the event, it's also how we viewed the event. It's our response to the event. So if let's say you had a very controlling parent, and you decided subconsciously or consciously no one would ever control you again, then you may take your wife's suggestions as control. Honey, I'd like to get the house painted. And what he's hearing, he's filtering out that sentence, and he's saying, honey, I want you to paint the house, and I want you to do it by next week. That's what he's hearing. And rather than she's just making a suggestion that she'd like to get the house painted. So he translates it because he's filtering it through the old feeling of being controlled.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So going back to denial, we deny the things that have happened to us in the past and our reaction to it. And as a result, we are controlled by the things that happened to us in the past because we're unwilling to look at how it affected us and how that effect is still affecting us and how it's prohibiting us from being connected to our loving, authentic, true self, and which affects our self-esteem and our relationships.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's in my couples that I see, that's probably one of the most shared aspect of why they have problems in their relationships. Just staying with the old belief and making that the facts of life for themselves, and actually everybody around them, and they're wondering how come other people are not seeing their point of view and they don't operate that way as well. And that is how can you not see that I'm right? How can you not see that this is the reality? I have lived with that, and how come so there is so many the beliefs become so blueprint of life for them,
right?
And that's the only blueprint that they know, and then if somebody doesn't accept that blueprint, then there is something wrong with them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then so to work with couples at this magnitude, it's a really, really delicate work, because we know where the problem is. Clients doesn't see where the problem is, and if we don't exactly do it in the right way, we can easily lose the client. And this is not about business exchange and giving a service to each other.
Right.
This is about how to help this individual to understand how they are pretty much the prisoner of their own beliefs, that it wasn't even theirs, it was imposed on them as a blueprint of life.
Yes, exactly. So I'd like to talk for a couple of moments about the book that I'm working out of to help explain this is called Codependence: Healing the Human Condition, the New Paradigm for Helping Professionals and People in Recovery by Charles Whitfield. It's an older book. I think it's from the 90s. But he talks a lot about the origin of codependence and what it is. And here he says there's a suggested diagnostic criteria for codependence. And the first thing that he says is a continued investment of self-esteem in the ability to control both oneself and others in the face of serious adverse consequences. So what does that mean? Continued investment of self-esteem in the ability to control both oneself and others in the face of serious adverse consequences. So let's say let's say you're in a family and you're the father, and one of your children is a drug addict, and so if you're a codependent, what you say is if your child wants help, you say to your child, well, you can beat this. All you have to do is focus on your schoolwork. Just focus on your schoolwork, and you won't have to use anything. Right. Just make that your top priority. And of course, what that says to the child is, you don't understand me, because the child is suffering, and the child is needing to use whatever they're using, drugs or alcohol generally, sometimes gambling, sometimes sex, but oftentimes drugs and alcohol. And the child has this great desire to use and doesn't understand why he's using, and so the child is carrying all of this confusion and fear, and then continuously using, and here the father isn't taking it seriously. He says, just focus on your studies, meaning that the father doesn't want to see that his child is in pain, and that's the denial. I don't want to see that you're in pain.
Right.
Rather than, oh my God, you're using these drugs and alcohol, and we got to help you, and I don't know how to help you, but I'm going to find out. I'm going to get some help for you. I'm going to look for professional help, and I'm going to see what needs to be done.
Yeah.
So, and the father is trying to eliminate his own pain, because it's painful for him to see that his child is suffering. So he just wants to give a glib answer, and he doesn't really want to take into consideration how much the child is struggling.
As a matter of fact, the example you just, the explanation you just provided, reminded me of a person that I know that now he is admitted at this rehab, and he's really struggling significantly. And when we told the family that they need to cover a portion of cost, and we were trying to explain what was that like, and they just told me it's straightforward, even without me finishing the conversation. They said, we don't want to know. Just tell us where to send the money. And I was stunned to hear that. I mean, they didn't want to know about how the son was doing, or what was the condition, what was the physical, emotional, mental condition. They just said, they don't want to hear it. They just want him to be taken care of, right?
Right.
But they didn't want to hear the details.
Right.
Just tell us where to send the money.
And your understanding of that is?
Denial. Denial is too painful to
right.
to know that their son is an addict and he needs help.
Right.
Right. They don't want to see their contribution to it. Right. And then all they want to do is just, okay, fix it. This is a problem. Fine, fix it, and here's the money.
Yeah. So that's a perfect example, and it's a personal example because that's within your family system. Yeah. And I want to say that that the main thing in life, in order to free ourselves, there's an old expression: the truth shall set you free.
Right.
Right. Unfortunately, we've sort of gotten away from that in society, and our dedication needs to be to discovering what the truth is, rather than feeling good.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
And feeling good also includes feeling right.
Right.
So our ego, you and I talk a lot about the ego and the spirit. The ego is about feeling right, is about being right. And the ego is about, I just want to feel good and I want to be right. And the reason for that is the ego is about getting. And the ego attaches whatever we think we need. That ego thinks that if we don't get what we need, we're going to die, which actually starts with the amoeba needing to eat something, goes up through the plant kingdom and up through the animal kingdom, where if we don't get what we need, which is food that is safe, then we die. And so the ego then says, if I don't get that car, I need that car. If I don't get that home, if I don't get those clothes, I need it. And the ego then will use our prefrontal cortex, the smart part of our brain, to obtain those things, as though the obtaining of those things is going to make us happy, whereas the obtaining of those things only gives us a high. You go in and you buy the Porsche for $150,000, whatever it is, and you walk out there with the keys and you feel high, but you don't feel happy. And people don't understand that there's a difference.
Well, I think 2 points here need to be focused on more so, is that, how this situation happens, that if I have this Porsche, I'm going to be happy, right? The point is that society actually feeds that into our brain.
Correct.
Right. So
Correct.
with all these commercial and, the society that we have that tell us if you don't have that Porsche, you're not as important as somebody else. If you don't have that, brand, you're not as important as somebody else, right? So they need to belong to, they need to fit in, they need to be accepted, they need to be, connecting to others, which essentially one must have that to begin with, right? And then the messages, the false messages that we get from society makes us actually believe that that Porsche is the source of my happiness initially. Makes us feel that, yes, that brand is what I need to fit in, right?
Yeah.
But then again, like you said, when we have the key in our hand, when we have that brand hanging all over us and everything, at the end of the day, still we're not happy. So how do we focus on these details? Is because we already have the predisposition of that growing up, and then society and all these markets and all these industries that they want to make a sale, they take advantage of that and they sell us the stuff, and we buy it.
And what I'd like to do also is I'd like to talk about why some of us are more predisposed to that kind of message from society.
Yeah.
Because we all get that message.
Yes.
Yes. But some of us don't buy into it as much as others.
As much as others.
Yeah. And some of us buy into it, and then we believe that we really need those things that society is saying, you need the latest iPhone, da-da-da-da-da.
Right.
And some of us go, no, not so much.
Right.
So we just got the notice that we're going to have to take another break. We're going to talk about that and more when we come back. So please join us.
Yes. Welcome back from our commercial break. Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here at Heart-to-Heart program at KMET 1490 AM, ABC News Radio Live. Our phone number 951-922-3532, and we love to hear from you. This program belongs to you. So we appreciate you giving us your hour. Thank you. So Dr. Robert Chaffee.
Yes.
You were talking about codependency.
I was, and I am. And so where I left off right before the break was to say, you had mentioned, how our society promulgates the belief that we need the latest toy, right? And we need the designer clothing, and we need the Jaguar, and and the Bentley and the Rolls.
Well, I mean, that starts actually at a very, very young age too. You look at the toys that they bring for kids. So it starts from early on. It's not just starting with a Porsche or with a brand purse.
Right.
It starts from early on as a child. That this toy is doing that, this toy doing that, and then kids see those commercials and they want it.
Exactly. So the thing that I left off with was to say, why are some people more predisposed to believing that they need the latest thing than others? And I think one major reason has to do with how much emotional nurturing we received as children. And the reason for that is because the more that we receive of emotional nurturing, which is actually food for our soul. When I say emotional nurturing, I'm talking about time that you spend with your children, or time that your parents spent with you, where you were the center of their universe, and where they took delight, or you take delight in your children. And you're smiling and you're laughing and you're playing with them, and your children are feeling like this is great because I'm being seen, I'm being validated, and most importantly, I'm being loved. And that is not something that any object, whether it's clothing or cars or anything, can make up for. The experience of being loved by somebody, the experience of having them take delight in you, the experience of seeing your mom and dad's face light up when they see you in the morning, that cannot be understated.
Right.
No, I'm sorry, wrong word. That cannot be overstated.
Overstated.
Yeah. It can be understated because what parents think, often because they didn't get what they needed, is that I'm going to go out, I'm going to work, and I'm going to make money so that I can give my kids everything.
Right.
And the reason that parents do that is because they probably didn't get the kind of nurturing and love and connection that they needed, nor did they get the physical things. So they don't know that the physical things are always secondary. So that and also it's easier to work than it is to be to use your creativity and your imagination and your right brain if you haven't been exposed to that, and if you haven't been allowed to do that in your life. Using our left brain is so much easier. So what I say, and I know that that for some people are going to go, wow, that's a strong statement, but I've said it, and I sort of believe it. I said we live in a world where we have intellectual giants, but we also have emotional morons, and that's because we haven't learned how important it is to be present, to be emotionally present with other people. And that is nobody's fault, really, because most of our parents tried to do the best they could. Not all of our parents. Some of our parents didn't do that, but most of our parents tried to do the best they could, but they were limited by what they knew and how they were parented. And their parents did the same thing, but they were limited. So I think we're in a process of evolution where we're now getting more information about what it really takes in order to create a happy and functional and healthy individual.
Right.
And that has to do with emotional nurturing.
Right.
So I think when you have an emotional nurturing, the person that I've learned a lot about this is Dr. Leo Buscaglia, who was a professor at USC and wrote a number of books. Leo Buscaglia, you can look him up online, and he wrote a number of books on love, and he talked about how he grew up in a family that was barely above the poverty line, but nobody knew it because there was so much love and so much joy and so much happiness in the family, and that when Mama was cooking, that everybody would be participating, and that everybody would be in the kitchen, and everybody would be joking and talking with each other, and so that got me to thinking about how little that happens today.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And how much we really need it.
Yeah.
And what has this got to do with addictions?
Right.
It has to do with emotional pain, which is the lack of nurturing, or sometimes the opposite of nurturing, where we're cruel or critical constantly with our children, and that makes them feel like there's something wrong with them, and they don't know what it is, but they know that something's not right. So then they look for something outside of themselves to make themselves feel better, which then leads them into addictions.
Exactly. And, we can't deny the role of, technology obviously has facilitated so much in life, no question about it. At the same time, technology cannot and has never been able to, nor is not going to be able to replace that emotional connection that we as human beings need to have, right? Not too long ago, when families came together, it was about talking and going in the kitchen, like you said, and preparing the meal together, and and share the meal, and that took a few hours. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
But now gathering has been, limited to ordering pizza or takeout or, things that, it's just something to fill up our stomach. And, and then it's not about really sitting down and taking time and eating and talking and having a conversation. So those aspects that you just described, they're pretty much gone. And in particular, when we look at our children, I feel so bad sometimes that they will never have the experiences that you and I have had growing up.
Right.
The experiences of being together, staying together, sharing, and during mealtime, during all those time. Everything is changing because of technology so fast.
Yes.
And, there is no way that anyone can keep up, first of all, with those changes. But we believe those changes, are our way of life, but essentially our way of life still is how we used to live many years ago, many centuries ago. We need to be connected. We need that emotional connection. We need that, a smile in the morning to see that from our parents or from our spouses or from our partners, anybody, right? There are certain things that in life that technology cannot replace.
Right.
Success cannot replace.
Exactly.
Money cannot replace.
Exactly.
And those are the details that we are missing, and they are pushed back, and we're wondering why rate of addictions of any kind and rate of divorce, rate of everything negative is increasing every day and every day and every day, including physical illness.
Right. And addictions are about ego.
Right.
And an ego is about survival. And I would be the last one to knock survival. I mean, I think our survival is very, very important. However, in our society, the majority of people, certainly not everyone, unfortunately, but the majority of people have survival licked. We don't, most of us don't worry about where our next meal is coming from. Unfortunately, some of us do.
Yes.
But those of us who don't have survival down okay. But then what we don't have is we don't have the spiritual, which is the connection to something greater than us, which starts with connection to another human being, and then moves on outward. Albert Einstein said, we're born into a family. He said, and in that family, he said, we have certain people that may be brothers and sisters, maybe parents, maybe aunts and uncles, maybe cousins. He said that we call people and we say that these are people that we're close to and that we love. He said, our job on this planet is to widen that circle until eventually it encompasses all of mankind.
Right.
And that quote, when I say it, I get chills.
Right.
Because that's our purpose here, is to bring love into this world. And the way that we do it is by recognizing that that's what we're here to do. And so it starts with us feeling lovable. It starts with us feeling appreciative. It starts with us feeling kind. It starts with us feeling grateful.
Right. And have gratitude.
Yes. And then giving those gifts away to other people. Right. I appreciate you. I love you. I care about you. These are words that we cannot overstate, and we cannot say them too many times.
Right.
But unfortunately, we say them too little. And when we say the opposite, when we say, well, you could do this differently. Why haven't you done it this way? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with you? Why did you think that? When we give those kinds of messages, we're giving fear messages to the other person that they're not okay. And those fear messages stay locked inside of us and are very powerful, especially when we're children. And we carry that with us. And those messages that I'm not okay, that there's something wrong with me, create stress and uncomfortableness within us that cause us to look for things to fix us, outside things to fix us. Yeah. And that is really the basis of addictions. And addiction can be treated, but it will not go away unless you take it seriously.
Yes, and by seriously we mean that look at for the place of discomfort, and then understand it. See, where did it come from? Why are we still holding on to that discomfort? Right. And then there is so much help out there. There's so much places that they can offer support, and just reach out. Don't just let the discomfort run us.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, when you talk about discomfort, you're bringing up the subject, I think, of trauma.
Yeah.
You know, and we're just about out of time. We only got a couple of more moments, but I'll just say a couple of things, and then next time I think we'll want to talk more about trauma, because now we know that trauma comes with a capital T or a small t.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
And the capital T traumas are those experiences that people go through that most people would say, oh, I can understand why that would be traumatic. That includes many wartime experiences. That includes any kind of natural disasters. And it includes any kind of physical assault or sexual assault. Those are the large T traumas. But now we know that traumas can also come in a small t. And small t can be just insults to the person.
Mm-hmm.
Just and especially when we're little and when we're babies, when we're 1, 2, 3 years old, it's easy to traumatize a child because they are so powerless, and they know that they're powerless, and they're so helpless, and they're so tiny. Their bodies are so tiny compared to us, mm-hmm. that they need us to make them feel safe. And when we give them fear messages, it can affect them in profound ways.
Yes, so we're going to focus on this for next time. I would like to invite you to please join us next Thursday at 3 p.m. for an episode of Sexual Healthcare and Sexuality, and next Friday, 9 a.m. for another episode of what we just talked about. And we see you then. And don't forget, all you need is love.
All you need is love.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.